At Wednesday's House Oversight Committee hearing, South Carolina Representative Nancy Mace accused the Biden administration of urging censorship on those they disagree with. Citing quotes from White House climate advisor Gina McCarthy and former press secretary Jen Psaki, Mace painted a picture of an administration eager to muffle dissenting views. Republicans have made claims of censorship and silencing key to their cultural complaints in recent years, citing examples of conservatives being deplatformed and shunned by the media and academia as evidence of enforced orthodoxy. Democrats have rejected such claims, citing examples of speakers, activists, and ideas attacked by conservatives, including the removal of controversial books from school libraries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank all the witnesses for being here this morning today with us. South Carolina's 1st Congressional District is a district that I represent, and we're on the front lines of American scientific, technological, and even environmental innovation. In fact, tens of thousands of people who work in these sectors call South Carolina's 1st Congressional District home, and we're very proud of that. These jobs require a high degree of expertise and training with an eye for ensuring tomorrow's America is more advanced, more prosperous, more safe, and, in fact, more environmentally friendly and more green. The beautiful coastal district that I'm honored to represent faces unique environmental challenges that I've tackled since the first day I ever took office. As an example of this, signing on as an original co-sponsor with my fellow Republican from Florida, H.R. 4696, the American Shores Protection Act, which would codify the former president's executive order to extend a moratorium on oil and gas drilling off the coasts of South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. I'm also proud to have a 100% rating with the conservation voters of South Carolina. I am often sometimes the lone Republican to vote on environmental measures when we're on the floor of the House. And I maintain this perfect rating and score not by trumpeting alarmist environmental propaganda, but by advancing sensible, practical, logical solutions to face South Carolina's challenges. I want to make myself clear the Lowcountry depends on the preservation of our region's environment, both for our prosperity and our region's well-being. Billions of dollars we depend on in our economy because of the tourism that we have. We have clean water, clean beaches, clean air, and sometimes we like to say our beaches are paved with gold. They're so beautiful. Left-wing environmentalists, however, are far too often try to shut down American industry without offering reasonable replacements. With the state of energy prices in the U.S. today, it's not time for policies that will make energy more expensive and less reliable, but we've got to work together on our future. And our reliance on oil and gas to fuel our lives, it's not going away tomorrow, nor should it. We have time to transition to greener, more robust energy policies. We must maintain robust domestic energy policies to allow ourselves and our allies to be energy independent. While we tap into billions of barrels of oil and natural gas here at home, we need to develop alternatives like nuclear, wind, solar, and geothermal. In fact, earlier this year, Representative Rokana and I out of California, when we did a bill to ban Russian oil and gas imports, we were looking for the government to study alternative forms of energy and look at the benefits of using those in the future. The uniqueness of that bill we were very proud to work on. Multiple Biden administrations, however, have called for censoring, deplatforming of individuals who say things that they disagree with. They call anything disagreement disinformation. And so I see this issue of censorship actually being two-sided. I think both sides have done some things that are wrong, inherently violate civil rights, inherently violate the Constitution. But while we're having this hearing today, I don't know why we're talking about, just attacks on the left, but attacks have happened by this administration. In fact, Gina McCarthy, the White House climate advisor, said during an interview that big tech companies should censor information she disagrees with about the environment and climate change, saying tech companies have to stop allowing specific individuals over and over again from spreading disinformation. We need the tech companies to really jump in here. Jen Psaki, former White House press secretary, called on big tech to do more to censor the Joe Rogan podcast, for example, for having interviewed people with dissenting views on the administration's COVID response. After Spotify put a disclaimer on the podcast for listeners who chose to stream it, she said their actions didn't go far enough, stating, so this disclaimer, it's a positive step, but we want every platform to continue doing more to call out misinformation and disinformation while also uplifting accurate information. Of course, the implication that the Biden administration dictates truth while also dissenting view is labeled disinformation. Mark Zuckerberg recently acknowledged during an interview on the Joe Rogan podcast that Facebook reduced distribution on its platform of a New York Post article breaking the news in October of 2020 about Hunter Biden's abandoned laptop. They did this after a general request from the FBI. Zuckerberg stated, "We just kind of thought, hey, look, if the FBI, which I still view as a legitimate institution in this country, is very professional law enforcement, if they came to us and tell us that we need to be on guard about something, and I'm going to take that seriously." Emails obtained from the federal government through litigation earlier this month show extensive coordination between 45 Biden administration officials and social media company employees to censor content related to COVID-19. So why aren't we looking into government-sanctioned threats against free speech? Calls to censor or deplatform certain people the administration disagrees with politically, or even entire news stories that could be harmful to a political candidate, are inappropriate and foster a culture that's hostile to our fundamental freedom of speech. And it's not one side or the other. Oftentimes, I think it can be both. Direct collusion by the government to silence opposition is even more troubling. We should also be talking about the administration's decision to resume the undemocratic practice of sue and settle at the EPA, which allows special interest groups to make rules through lawsuits instead of the rulemaking process. This prevents the voices of Americans from being heard by removing them from rulemaking process while allowing environmental groups to have more say in policy than the American public. And don't get me started on the racket of lawsuits by environmental groups here today. While the Biden administration has been attacking free speech, I've also been working on bipartisan solutions to issues facing not only my state, but our country. This is why I work across the aisle to promote sensible energy policy. We can only solve the hardest problems in our country with bipartisan solutions. And only then will we accomplish the demands of the American people. I want to thank the chairman and the witnesses for their participation today. And I did want to ask unanimous consent, Mr. Chairman, to enter the following articles into the record.
Without objection.
Thank you. An Axios article detailing how Gina McCarthy called on big tech to crack down on climate change misinformation. An article from the Washington Post dealing how then White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki called for Spotify to do more than add a disclaimer to Joe Rogan's podcast. An article from CNN detailing how Mark Zuckerberg revealed Facebook was acting on a general FBI warning when it decreased distribution of a New York Post story on the infamous laptop. An article from Deseret News detailing how dozens of Biden administration officials worked with social media companies to censor dissenting COVID-19 opinions. Thank you, and I yield back.
All right.